I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my wedding dress, my heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and nerves. I was about to marry the man I loved, Matt. He was everything I had ever dreamed of, kind, supportive, handsome, and smart. Our lives were about to intertwine forever, and yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. But what I didn't realize was that something had been standing right in front of me all along, his older brother, Ethan. As I looked at my reflection, I saw the woman who had everything she needed. But then, my mind wandered back to that night, just a few weeks ago, at a family gathering at Matt's parents' house. The moment we were alone, and Ethan's eyes locked with mine in a way that made my knees weak. He was always so composed, yet there was a fire behind his gaze that I could never quite ignore. Matt had been in the kitchen, chatting with our parents, while I had stepped outside to take a breath. Ethan had followed me, his presence so commanding it felt like the air around us thickened. I didn't know it then, but that night would change everything. "Something's on your mind," Ethan had said, his voice low and knowing. His tone was calm, but there was a hint of mischief in his eyes. I had smiled awkwardly, trying to hide the tension that had been building between us for months. "I'm just stressed about the wedding," I had replied, my voice trembling slightly. "You shouldn't be. You've got the perfect guy," he said, taking a step closer, his eyes searching mine. "But, are you sure? I mean, you really seem perfect for him." I nodded, trying to ignore the thundering pulse in my ears. "I'm sure. I love him." Ethan didn't say anything more at first. He simply stood there, looking at me with an intensity that made me want to shrink away and pull closer at the same time. I had tried to break the tension by laughing, but it didn't work. Instead, Ethan reached out and tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. "Do you ever wonder if there's more to life than this? More than the perfect guy?" he asked softly, his fingers grazing my skin. I felt a shiver run down my spine, and before I knew it, I was stepping closer to him, the space between us closing. It wasn't just his touch. It was the way he looked at me, like he could see all the hidden parts of me that I had kept buried for years. And then, it happened. Without thinking, I found myself leaning in, my lips meeting his in a kiss that was both soft and desperate. It was a kiss that ignited something in me I had never felt before, something forbidden, but irresistible. When we finally pulled away, I saw the same confusion and desire mirrored in his eyes. Neither of us said a word. We just stood there, breathing heavily, both knowing that what had just happened was something we could never take back. "I should go back inside," I had whispered, my voice barely audible. Ethan didn't stop me. Instead, he stepped back, his expression unreadable. "Yeah," he said, almost too calmly. "You should." As I walked back into the house, my heart raced, and my thoughts were a whirlwind. What had I just done? I was supposed to be marrying Matt, my future, my everything. But in that moment, all I could think about was Ethan. The pull between us was magnetic, undeniable. But I was engaged to Matt, wasn't I supposed to feel guilty? And yet, as I lay in bed that night, it wasn't guilt I felt, it was longing. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Your support means the world to me, and your likes and comments give me the courage to keep telling my story. I know it's a taboo subject, but sometimes, sharing these raw experiences can help others who might be facing something similar. Stay tuned as the story continues, where I'll dive deeper into my inner struggle. Please share this story, as it could resonate with others who feel torn between the heart and the mind. The days following that night felt like a blur. Each moment was tinged with the tension of knowing what I had done, yet not being able to shake the feeling that something had shifted within me. I found myself going through the motions of my daily life, smiling at Matt, planning our wedding, and trying to push the memory of Ethan out of my mind. But no matter how hard I tried, Ethan's face lingered in my thoughts, his touch, his kiss, the way he looked at me like he knew exactly who I was, even the parts one hadn't let anyone see. It had been a week since that moment at the family gathering, and I had convinced myself it was a one-time lapse in judgment, a mistake I could ignore. I told myself it was nothing more than the heat of the moment, that it didn't mean anything. But deep down, I knew I was lying. Matt could see it. He noticed the way I seemed distant, how I wasn't as present as I usually was. He asked me if something was wrong, if I was still excited about the wedding, and I would force a smile and assure him everything was fine. I wanted it to be fine. I wanted to feel the way I used to feel about him, secure, certain, happy. But every time I closed my eyes, Ethan's image would fill my mind, pulling me back into a world I knew I shouldn't be a part of. One afternoon, a few days later, I found myself alone in the house with Ethan again. Matt had gone out for a meeting, and I was supposed to be working on some wedding details, but my thoughts were scattered. I heard a knock at the door, and when I opened it, there he was, Ethan, standing there with that familiar, almost haunting look in his eyes. "I thought I'd check in on you," he said, his voice smooth, low. "Matt's not around, so I figured we could talk." I nodded, stepping aside to let him in. The space between us seemed charged, like the air had thickened with every second that passed. I tried to stay calm, to remind myself that I was engaged to Matt, that this was wrong, that I needed to push Ethan away. But I couldn't. We sat down in the living room, the silence between us awkward but not uncomfortable. Ethan was watching me, his eyes intense, as if he were waiting for me to speak first. I couldn't bring myself to say anything, so I looked down at my hands, twisting them nervously in my lap. "You've been quiet lately," Ethan said, his voice breaking the silence. "Are you okay?" I nodded, though my heart was racing. "Yeah, just trying to keep everything together, you know? The wedding's coming up, and it feels like there's so much to do." Ethan leaned forward slightly, his gaze never leaving mine. "I know it's a lot, but don't forget to take care of yourself too. You don't have to be perfect for everyone, especially not for Matt." The words hit me like a punch. Was that how he saw me? A woman struggling to live up to expectations? The idea that he thought I didn't have to be perfect for Matt, it was both freeing and terrifying. It made me question everything. Before I could respond, Ethan reached over and gently touched my hand. His touch was electrifying, sending a shiver through my body. "I don't want to make things difficult for you," he said quietly. "But I can't pretend like nothing happened." I pulled my hand away, feeling the space between us widen. "We shouldn't talk about this," I whispered, my voice trembling. "It was a mistake." Ethan's eyes softened, but there was still that intensity. "You can't pretend like it didn't happen either," he said, his voice low and sincere. "I know what you feel. I know you can't forget it any more than I can." The words hung in the air between us, and I could feel my resolve slipping away. The temptation to give in, to allow myself to feel the forbidden passion between us, was overwhelming. I wanted to push him away, to say that this was wrong, that it couldn't continue. But every part of me screamed to give in. "I shouldn't be doing this," I whispered, more to myself than to him. "Matt is my fiancé. I love him." "I know you do," Ethan said, his voice soft, understanding. "But that doesn't change what we feel." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on me. The truth was, I didn't know what I felt. I loved Matt, but Ethan made me feel alive in a way I had never experienced before. It was wrong. It was so wrong, but I didn't know how to stop it. When I opened my eyes, Ethan was standing up, his face inches from mine. He didn't need to say anything, his presence was enough. Without thinking, I stood up too, and before I knew it, we were kissing again. Fiercely, desperately, as if we both knew this moment was fleeting but needed to seize it before it slipped away. This time, there was no hesitation. No second guessing. Only the heat between us, the pull of something forbidden and undeniable. When we finally pulled away, breathless, my mind was spinning. What had I just done? Again? Ethan looked at me, his expression unreadable. "We can stop," he said, though his voice was tinged with something that sounded like regret. "But I don't think we can forget what's happened." I stepped back, my heart pounding. "We need to stop," I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it. Ethan didn't argue. He simply nodded, his gaze lingering on me for a moment before he turned to leave. "I'll see you around," he said quietly. As the door closed behind him, I stood there, paralyzed, my heart torn between the life I had with Matt and the burning desire that had taken root in me for Ethan. I felt like I was living a lie, each moment with Matt a reminder of the love I had once thought was enough. But now, it didn't feel like enough anymore. I was no longer sure of anything. Thank you for following me on this journey. Your likes and comments encourage me to keep sharing my truth, even when it's difficult. I know many of you can relate to feeling torn between love, loyalty, and desire. Please, share this story if it resonates with you. There is strength in honesty, and together, we can find a way through our struggles.